Hello, I'm Beck. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be drawing a D&D character based on the roll of the dice. Let's bring out the Tower of Destiny! Now we have a Fairy Warlock, and in D&D, fairies are described as wee folk, but not nearly as much as their pixie and sprite friends. And they generally look like small elves with insectile wings, but each fairy has a special physical characteristic that sets the fairy apart. There is a D8 table that you can roll to distinguish what characteristic that is, or you can make up your own. I rolled You Smell Like Fresh Brownies, which is number 7, which I can't really draw, so I did give her big ears. I think the last fairy I drew, I rolled that she would have big ears, but I just think they're very cute when they have big ears. Anyway, some special fairy traits that you get are flight, because you have wings, obviously, and fairy magic, which means you know the druid craft cantrip. And starting at level 3, you can cast fairy fire, and starting at level 5, you can cast enlarge reduce spell. So those are both pretty fun spells to play with. Now, what does this look like with regards to her being a warlock? So warlocks are known as pact makers. They get their magic through an agreement that they've made with someone much more powerful than themselves. Generally, these are like demon entities, but they can also be fae nobles, devils, hags, alien entities. And I have seen some games where the warlock has actually made an agreement with a deity or a god, so you would think they would be a bit like a cleric, but a cleric's magic comes from their faith in the god, whereas a warlock has an agreement, so it's very much a transactional situation. Because I've got a fairy here, I was naturally drawn to the subclass of warlock where you have to select which patron you have, and I chose the Archfey patron. So the subclass really just allows a warlock to distinguish what kind of magic they can do based on who is giving them their power. Obviously, if you have a demon as your patron, you're going to have different magical abilities than if you have a Archfey or an incredibly godlike powerful fairy giving you magic. So this actual fairy, she's not that powerful, so she needs to get her magic from a more powerful fae, such as the Archfey, I can't say his name, Hirosam, the Prince of Fools. So the reason I was drawn to this one is because I wanted this fairy to be a bit of a trickster. I wanted her to be the kind that steals your socks and makes your keys go missing, and she's basically just all about creating a little bit of chaos, and whether you know it was her or not, I just like that idea of like things going missing, oh it was the fairies, that kind of thing. So that's what her deal is. Some of the special traits that you get when you have an Archfey as your patron when you're playing as a warlock is Fae Presence. So starting at first level, your patron bestows upon you the ability to project the beguiling and fearsome presence of the Fae. You could argue that she already had this, but she definitely has it now. As an action, you can cause each creature in a 10-foot cube originating from you to make a wisdom saving throw against your warlock spell save DC. The creatures that fail their saving throws are charmed or frightened by you, your choice, until the end of your next turn. At 6th level, you get Misty Escape. So you can banish in a puff of mist in response to harm. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to turn invisible and teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. You remain invisible until the start of your next turn or until you attack or cast a spell. At level 10, you get something called Beguiling Defenses, which I won't read because I haven't actually played a game where we've gotten to level 10. And at 14, you get Dark Delirium. Both of them are very cool, and I encourage you to read about them if you are approaching that level whilst playing an Archfey Warlock, or Archfey Patroned Warlock. You get it. Looking at her ability stats, she doesn't have any like amazing skills, like she doesn't have any +3s, but she also isn't terrible at anything, so she doesn't have any -3s. Her strength is -1, which means she's less than average as far as strength goes. Being a fairy, she's probably strong for her size, but she wouldn't be able to necessarily like move boulders or you know, she can't really take much of a hit, which, you know, she's a fairy. So I think even among other fairies, she can't really take a hit, because if you were getting punched by a massive giant, you would need pretty crazy strength to overcome that. But yeah, her -1, she's not the strongest. She hasn't really, I think she's more of the runaway kind of fairy than the stand and fight, and that's why she never developed that kind of physical strength. Her dexterity is average, so she can tie knots and set traps and dismantle traps, but it's a sort of 50-50 chance whether she'll actually make the trap explode in her face or anything like that. She's very average skilled in that dexterity, and as far as being sneaky goes, which is a dexterity roll, I think that she draws attention to herself accidentally, so even when she's trying to be stealthy, she might accidentally like knock things over and stuff like that. So she's, even though she's tiny, she isn't the stealthiest in the world. Her constitution is also just average, so she can't really withstand a lot of like weariness, like she might get exhausted pretty easily. That said, she's not weak by any means, so she can probably stay up late without just fully passing out. She can try a number of different types of food without getting sick. Her ability to withstand poison is average because her con is average. Her intelligence is +1, so she's a little more intelligent than other fairies. She likes to read, maybe. I think a lot of fairies are very interested in stories, but I think she's also interested in facts. So she's probably more drawn to reading historical stories, things where there's not so much a lesson in the story, but the takeaways of the story actually give her real world advantages. Wisdom, her ability to apply the real world information that she has gotten from intelligence, helps her. She can read people pretty well, above average, as I've said 5,000 times now. And charisma as well, above average, but not crazily above average. So she can be charming, she can be a little threatening, nothing crazy, but she's sort of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of fairy. As far as her background goes, I think she definitely has a lot of siblings. She has very strong little brat energy, so I think she's probably either the youngest or one of the youngest in her family. I think it was one of those sort of households. I don't know if you call them that being a fairy, but she grew up in the Feywild. I think she's moved onto the mortal plane at the request of her warlock patron, who I'm not going to say the name because I don't know how to say it. Tell me in the comments if there's like some phonetical guide, but I couldn't find one. Anyway, I also didn't try very hard, to be fair. what was I talking about? Her Warlock patron has sent her into the mortal plane, but growing up, she was very much one of those sort of chaotic fairies who's flying around the forest, moving things around. Maybe even before she was involved in the Warlock patron, she might have known Hiram? God damn it. Anyway, she might have known it. He might have sort of been a bit of a mentor, or she just really looked up to him, and her whole family looked up to him. They're the kind who like move plants around so people can't get their bearings when they're walking through the forest. They like to, you know, tie shoelaces together and all the kind of tee-hee kind of fun times. And now that she's in the mortal plane, she doesn't really know her way around, which is a great way to introduce having an adventuring party. She might join in with people, maybe starting by just following them around. Like, whether or not they're aware of it would be fun to roll, and maybe even if she fails the roll, they don't immediately let her know that they know she's following. She needs to learn the ways of this world so that she knows A, how to avoid being killed, but B, how to like bother people, how to rub people the wrong way and just play silly little tricks on them all the time. And I think she would have a lot of fun doing that. And I think maybe if the adventuring party sort of takes her in, and it's that, you know, that bond that you get, that's supportive, she might actually develop a little bit more empathy, where she at first would definitely trick them every chance she gets, but as time goes on, they would become the off limits. Like at home in the Feywild, there is no one off limits when it comes to tricking. But if her adventuring party were like, this isn't fun for us, please stop, she would actually stop. So I think there's some personal growth potential in there as well. In terms of the kind of adventures that she would want to go on, I think she's the kind who has the sort of tag-along vibe. So if the general party is doing this big thing where they're trying to defeat a king or a lich or something like that and save the world, this isn't even her world. So she could potentially save the day by doing lols on the lich. Like, while the rest of the adventuring party is fighting him head on, she could be like stealing very essential stuff from him and replacing it with like a teddy bear or something. I think that's the kind of fighting that she would do, and I think that's the kind of thing that her Warlock patron would really appreciate. Definitely stealing items of great magical importance and bringing them back to the Feywild. So the people in the mortal realm who are maybe relying on those magical items sort of check why the magic isn't working, only to find, yeah, there's a sock there, or it's just gone. I think that's the kind of chaotic fairy that she aspires to be and already is. Now, we haven't given her a name yet. I'm thinking Trixie. Trixie seems like a good name for her. And that's supposed to be a toothpick in her mouth. I hope that was clear. I spent like a weirdly long amount of time making it look like a toothpick compared to the amount of time I spent making her, well, wings, for example. God, I'm bad at wings. They're supposed to look insectile, but they just look chaotic. Although she's chaotic, so I guess her wings are allowed to be a little bit crazy. In other news that is somewhat unrelated to Trixie, well, completely unrelated to Trixie, but not to the channel, is that I am getting my tonsils removed on Monday. So there might not be a video next week or potentially the week after, because the doctor said for adults the recovery period can be rough and to allow 2 weeks. So I will be back. If it's not next week or the week after, it will definitely be the week after that. So sorry if I miss any of these, but it is what it is. Life happens. But yeah, let me know, what do you think about Trixie, the Warlock Fairy? Do you like her chaotic face? Thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next time. Okay, bye.